So, in this class, we are going to discuss about some basics in mathematical physics, basics in mathematical physics. That means I'll go for vectors first. A brief explanation about vectors and mechanics I'll give you. Later I will enter into the concepts. Okay. So this is for 8th completed students and 10th that ninth completed students. Okay, for you all, the basics I'll tell you once again. Okay, about vector basics. Here, I cap, j cap, and k cap are the unit vectors. I cap, comma j cap, and k cap are the unit vectors along x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. These three x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. All these three are mutual perpendicular lines. Mutual perpendicular lines. So here the vertical axis is a y-axis and horizontal is a x-axis, and this is a imaginary. This is a z-axis. X-axis, horizontal axis, and y-axis is a vertical axis, and this is a z-axis. The angle between these two, x and y, is 90 degrees. And here, y and z is a 90, and this one, z and x-axis is also 90 degrees. Here, all these three are mutual perpendicular lines. What is I cap? I cap is a unit vector along x-axis. Suppose you all know that force is a vector physical quantity. And it is acting horizontally. How can you denote? Force is a vector physical quantity and it is acting along x-axis. How can you denote? So I will draw it here. Suppose I have a box here. And on this, the force is acting like this. How many units of force is acting? 3 units of force is acting along x-axis. 3 units of force is acting along x-axis. In which direction it is? Along x-axis. You can denote like this: 3 I cap. F is equal to 3 I cap newtons. Suppose you are lifting a object in vertical direction, upwards, vertical direction, with the same force, that is F is equal to 3 units again. In which direction it is acting? Along y-axis. How can you note it? 3j cap. F is equal to 3j cap. Suppose the same block is pulling along the z-axis. Like this. With the same force, F is equal to 3k cap. Here, I cap, j cap, and k cap are the 3 unit vectors along the respective axis x, y, z. And I cap is equal to j cap is equal to k cap is equals to 1 always. It is a unit. Okay, this is how we note it here. Suppose the block is in xy plane. Now you are applying force on this. The block is in xy plane, which includes x-axis and y-axis. This is x-axis and this is y-axis. This is xy plane. Here is the block. Now you are pushing the block. With a force of how can you return? F bar is equal to 3 I cap, that means 3 units force is acting on that along x-axis, and 3 j cap, 3 more units of force along y-axis. So this is how we need to note it down. Why I am writing here is 3i plus 3j, because it is in xy plane. Object is in xy plane and force acting on it is in a xy plane. F bar is equal to 3i plus 3j. Similarly, suppose the block is here. Here the force is applying on this. So how can you mention F bar is equal to 3j cap plus 3k cap? Here it is not with I cap. Why? Because the block is present in YZ plane, not X, YZ plane. Suppose the block is here. It is independent of Y axis. The force is acting on this. F bar is equal to 3I plus 3K cap. 3K cap. Because it is a XZ plane. XZ plane. This is how we need to mention the forces acting on an object in a respective plane. Look, I cap is a unit vector along x axis, j cap is a unit vector along y axis, k cap is a unit vector along z axis, right? And when the object is present in xy plane, your f bar is equal to 3i cap plus 3j cap. Here it is independent of z axis. So here k and k coefficients is 0. Suppose the object is present in YZ plane. This is the how the force is acting. F bar is equal to 3j plus 3k because here it is in y and z plane. So y coefficient unit vector along y axis is j, unit vector along z axis is k. That will be present here. This block is present in xz plane. It is independent of y. So here j cap is not there. Only I cap and k cap, right? So this is about forces acting along a axis and in a plane. Suppose it is along a x axis, you need to mention with its magnitude with I cap. If it is along a y axis, you need to mention that magnitude with the j cap. If that object is moving along z axis, you need to mention that magnitude with the k cap. If it is in xy plane, you need to mention that force vector with I cap and j cap. If it is in yz plane, you need to mention that force vector with j and k. Suppose it is in xz plane, you need to mention that force. With I cap and k cap. This is about a basic vector notation of a force. Okay, so you came to know that how the forces are acting along a single axis and in a plane. In tomorrow's class, I'll go for few more basics in vectors. Okay, bye.